بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم له ملك السماوات والأرض يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن وهو بكل شيء عليم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد صلى الله عليه وآله أجمعين وأصحابه المنتجبين. أما بعد، قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: هو الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن. Respectable audience, distinguished listeners, honorable viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. God willing, today we're going to talk about the negative attributes of Almighty Allah. Let me have a brief look at what we have said in the previous session so that our dear listeners should join us with complete awareness that what was said in the previous session. You know that in the previous lecture and the previous lesson, God willing, we could prove that Almighty Allah is the only necessary existent. And you know that the necessary existent does not stand in need of any other cause, in need of any other existent. So now the question arises, or this might click our viewers' minds, that what are the characteristics, what are the most fundamental features of this necessary existent? What are those characteristics through which we can discern that this is the very necessary existent? What are those uncompromising or indispensable characteristics and features that Almighty Allah has and Almighty Allah is known with? So today, inshallah, we will be talking about these attributes. Primarily, it should be noted, it should be kept in mind that the Muslim philosophers have divided Almighty Allah's attributes into two categories. The first, negative, and the second, positives. Meaning that Almighty Allah should be known and should be perceived or should be conceived through these positive and negative attributes. There are some negative attributes that can never ever be ascribed to Almighty Allah, or Almighty Allah is bereft of all these negative attributes. A Muslim believer or a person who is of correct nature, he should not maintain that his Lord is having all these negative attributes. Because of this, we believe that these attributes should be negated, should not be ascribed, should not be attributed to Almighty Allah. While there are some positive attributes that they should be ascribed to Almighty Allah, such as life, such as wisdom, such as justice. We should have a Lord that should be beautified with all these nice and indispensable qualities, such as justice, such as wisdom, such as life. Do you know that there are some similarities in these attributes and there are some differences? But keeping this point in mind that Almighty Allah possesses some positive and some negative attributes. And today, God willing, since we have philosophically or rationally proved Almighty Allah's necessary existence, today we will be talking about the characteristics in those most important features this necessary existent has. Dear listeners, when we could prove that Almighty Allah is the necessary existent and He does not stand in need of any other existence, so we will come to this conclusion that whose existence is of its own or of His own, then a very important quality can be drawn, can be derived, and that is eternity, that is timelessness. So I do request my dear listeners that they to pay attention to this subtle and very, very important issue, that how timelessness or how eternity comes from the midst of, we can say, necessary existence. When we could rationally prove that Almighty Allah is the only or the mere necessary existent, we can derive, or the philosophers have derived another important feature, and that is eternity. Why they could develop this argument? Why could they develop this feature for Almighty Allah? Because they believe since His existence is of His own, then there is not any beginning, and for sure there will not be any end. So Almighty Allah's important feature is that He is timeless. Almighty Allah is something eternal. Almighty Allah is without any beginning. Almighty Allah has been for always, had been in the past, and He will be in the future as well. There is not any interval that one should find that the world, the universe, or the whole creatures should be divided of Almighty Allah. No. Almighty Allah's existence is eternal. Almighty Allah's existence is necessary. So from this concept, from being necessary, we draw this conclusion that Almighty Allah is a timeless creator. He is not a creator that should be limited through time, space, and many other limitations. No, Almighty Allah is eternal. Almighty Allah is an everlasting being. So when Almighty Allah became an everlasting, a timeless, an eternal being, we will come to this conclusion that this feature has been drawn from this important concept of necessarily existent being. Wajibul wujud. From this concept, wajibul wujud, the philosophers drew this conclusion that Almighty Allah should be eternal. There should not be any beginning. We should not assume that there is a time that Almighty Allah was not there and then Almighty Allah came into being. We do not have such an assumption. It seems absurd from a rational and philosophical point of view, because we could prove that Almighty Allah's existence is of His own, and there is no other cause to bring about Almighty Allah. Almighty Allah is the prime existent. Almighty Allah is the very first cause of every other creature. This is the first important feature, that Almighty Allah is eternal. Almighty Allah is timeless.
لا إله إلا هو الملك فيكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون والله الخالق البارئ المصور.
So when Almighty Allah is timeless, when Almighty Allah is eternal, it means that all the creatures being are dependent on Almighty Allah's being, on Almighty Allah's favor, on Almighty Allah's mercy. This is an important feature, that Almighty Allah is eternal. So eternity came and was derived from the concept of necessary existence. Dear listeners, another important concept that can be derived from this important concept, I mean necessarily existent, it is that we have to know some of those negative attributes of Almighty Allah. For instance, Almighty Allah does not accept any components. Every kind of components should not be ascribed to Almighty Allah. In another word, Almighty Allah is simple. Simplicity in philosophical sense means that Almighty Allah is pure. Almighty Allah is not made up of different components. Almighty Allah is not a mixture of different fragments or different kinds of things. So Almighty Allah is simple. We call it in Arabic language basit. So Almighty Allah is simple. Almighty Allah does not contain any parts. Why? Because every composition stands in need. But we would say, and we have already said, that Almighty Allah is needless. So due to the needlessness of Almighty Allah, He is not a mixture of different components. He is not a mixture of different fragments or different pieces. So all those compound things or beings are taken away from Almighty Allah's realm. Almighty Allah is pure. Almighty Allah is simple. So this is another important negative attribute that should never be ascribed to Almighty Allah. In another word, once again I should reiterate, Almighty Allah's another important feature is simplicity. Almighty Allah is simple. Almighty Allah is a purely existent being. So in this simplicity, in this purity, there is no place left for composition. Almighty Allah is not made up of something or made up of different components or made up of different potential and active ingredients. Almighty Allah is pure. Almighty Allah does not accept, or Almighty Allah is not consist of different components or fragments or different pieces. Why? Because the things which are made up of different pieces, those beings or those things are always in need of their parts, are always in need of their constituents. But we do believe that Almighty Allah is ghaniyun bidhat. Almighty Allah is essentially needless. Almighty Allah is standing without being in need of any other cause or any other existent. So such a being is always pure, such a being is always simple, I mean basit. This was the second most important attribute that can be ascribed to Almighty Allah, that Almighty Allah is simple. The first was eternity, that Almighty Allah is eternal. The second adjective or the second attribute that we can ascribe to Almighty Allah, that is Almighty Allah is simple. Almighty Allah is basit. Almighty Allah is a pure existent. Honorable listeners, it should be pointed out that needfulness or standing in need of other constituents, that is the feature of possible existent. You know that when you are in need of something, it means that you are possibly existent. You are mumkinul wujud when you stand in need of other components or any other constituent elements. Those elements which compose one's being. So for sure, the being is always in need of those components. Since being in need of something is an implication of possible existent, in prior we proved that Almighty Allah is not a possible existent. Almighty Allah is a necessary existent. So the conclusion can be drawn that Almighty Allah stands against needfulness. For needfulness is of those possible existent feature, not of those necessary existent features. Another important negative attribute that should never be ascribed to Almighty Allah, or we should negate these attributes from Almighty Allah, that is negation of physical existence to Almighty Allah. It means that Almighty Allah is not having a physical existence. Almighty Allah does not contain a corporeal existence. Almighty Allah is a spiritual being. You know that why we should negate physic and bodily and earthly, we can say, existence from Almighty Allah, because earthly and physical bodies are always in need. They're always standing needy. They're always poor. They are not able to survive or exist by themselves. So such a feature should also be negated from Almighty Allah. Almighty Allah is not something earthly that should stand in need of other components, other, we can say, beings. You can never ever find a corporeal being that should stand needless, that should be needless of every other things, every other beings. No, the corporeal and the earthly and the terrestrial beings are always needy. So keeping this point in mind, Almighty Allah does not have any corporeal or physical body. For if it had, suppose, if it had corporeal body, He would have stood needy for every other beings, for every other causes, this and that. Since Almighty Allah does not have this kind of being in existence, so He stands needless. As it was said, Almighty Allah does not need other existence.
Inna Allah ya'muru bil 'adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idukum la'allakum tadhakkarun.
The third important negative attribute that should be negated from Almighty Allah's realm, that is, that Almighty Allah does not have and is not limited within the space and time. Almighty Allah does not have any specific time or place that we should go and find Him. Why? Because time and space are the creature of Almighty Allah. So Almighty Allah does not stand in need of His creature. Almighty Allah should be thought beyond this space and time. So Due to this important concept, Almighty Allah is present everywhere, making no difference. It should be west, east, north, or south. And due to this, Almighty Allah has been from the eternity and will be there for always. From time immemorial, Almighty Allah had been present. And Almighty Allah would remain forever. Almighty Allah is not a being that should be subject to time, space, and change. And later on we will talk about this. Almighty Allah stands beyond the limitations of time and space. Spatio-temporal determinations cannot restrict and cannot limit Almighty Allah's all-encompassing existence. So Almighty Allah does not have any spatio-temporal feature or character. Almighty Allah stands beyond this space and time. Why? Because His space and time are something that Almighty Allah has created. So He cannot be limited within His own creature. One of the kinds of creature that is sun, which we all measure or through which all we assess the timing. So Almighty Allah has created the sun, the earth, the heavens. So He cannot be limited within His own creature. So the third negative attribute that we should never ascribe to Almighty Allah, that is time and space. We should not say that where is Almighty Allah. Almighty Allah is everywhere. Or what time Almighty Allah does this and that. Time and space are understandable, comprehensible in relation to the human beings' deeds and actions, in relation to the creatures, not to the Creator. So that is that Almighty Allah stands beyond time and space. And this was the third important negative attribute that should be negated from Almighty Allah's realm. Another important feature that, God willing, today we are talking about, that is that no one can see the necessary existent. Why? Because visibility or physical visibility is the most important feature of materialistic things. So such kind of thing cannot be attributed to Almighty Allah, that we can see Almighty Allah. Or from a materialistic point of view, we should raise this question that where is Almighty Allah? I cannot see Almighty Allah, so I cannot believe in an unseen creator, or in an unseen, we can say, Lord. It should be mentioned that visibility is not equal to being. There are many existents that cannot be seen visibly, that cannot be seen by our eyes, but we can feel them. We do attest, we do acknowledge that they exist, though we cannot tell or we cannot convince our opponents that this is what we believe, this is the thing that you have to see. For example, love and affection. Every one of us, with our pure and sinless nature, acknowledge that love exists. But can we bring it out and show someone else physically? For sure not. In response to those who are thinking materialistically, or those who are radically materialists, who believe that every existence or every existence should be physically available, should be physically verifiable, or should be physically refutable, or should be physically visible. My argument goes to them. We believe that existence goes beyond visibility. Existence is more comprehensive than only being visible. There are some existence that we cannot see by our eyes, but at the same time, we do acknowledge that they exist, such as love. So Almighty Allah's existence is of a spiritual character and nature. So His existence cannot be seen by our eyes. We cannot see Almighty Allah. For if we could see Almighty Allah, He had to be a limited being. But Almighty Allah is not a limited being. Almighty Allah is infinite. Almighty Allah is not a definite being that we should see and we should understand with our sense, with our physical perceptions.
لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون والله الخالق البارئ المصور.
So the final important feature that we could prove for Almighty Allah, that was this, that the necessary existent, Allah is not able to be seen. It means we cannot see Almighty Allah, for He is not a definite being. He is an infinite being, an existent. So, dear listeners, in this lesson we could prove that since Almighty Allah is a necessary existent, this existent should have some important features and characteristics. Finally, we provided you all these 4 or 5 features that Almighty Allah can be known by all these important and uncompromising features and characteristics. One of the most important feature was simplicity. Another important feature was the negation of composition. Almighty Allah is not a compound existent. Another important point was that Almighty Allah is not subject to change, as the rest of the creatures are subject to change, subject to death, and subject to evolution. Why? Because they are possible existence. So these are exactly the basic features of possible and sometimes physical existence. Since Almighty Allah does not have a physical existence, so Almighty Allah should be thought devoid of all these features. Materialistic features. The last point was that Almighty Allah is not able to be seen, or we cannot see Almighty Allah, because Almighty Allah is not a definite existence so that it should be seen. Almighty Allah is an infinite existent, so He cannot be seen. More importantly, Almighty Allah is not subject to materialistic features. Every physical body, every corporeal components or materialistic things can be seen, but the spiritual things or the spiritual elements cannot be seen. It does not mean that they do not exist, or spirituality does not exist, or love does not exist. It exists, but it cannot be seen. It cannot be touched by our senses. May God bless us all, dear listeners, that we have to firstly understand all these divinely revealed teachings, and then we have to apply them in our own practical life so that we have to be given the eternal felicity. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم انفعنا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وجملنا بالعافية وكرمنا بالتقوى. إن وليي الله الذي نزل الكتاب وهو يتولى الصالحين.